everyone to Daitsu, Life and In Between. I just want to tell you that we have a really exciting episode coming up. We have Pac-Man, Patrick Perez, that's going to talk about his life, where everything goes, where he got started. And we're going to find out some exciting stuff from him. And this episode is It Sucks, and Now What? So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Patrick Perez. Here we go.
It could be more exciting than jumping in with the title, This Sucks. No one. That's awesome. Well, it's good to be here because we've been doing this for quite a while now. So, yeah, I'm a guest on our own podcast. And forgive me, I'm chewing gum. Because my mouth is so dry. I'm like super dry right now. Yeah, that sticky teeth thing.
Patrick, I do have my first question. If you don't mind me going first, Diane. Ladies
sure,
first.
Go ahead.
Just letting you know. Okay. So, Diane. Okay, Patrick, straight up, wow. Like, as I'm going back through the podcast and listening and everything, I'm like, did this dude just rap? Like, just like came out of nowhere and just rapped on this deal to introduce me on my podcast. So tell me about that. Like, okay, well, you don't have to start from there, but I can't wait to hear about that.
It's just basic freestyle. So shout out to my crew, El Paso, Texas, Sun City Floor Rockers, now known as the Sun City Pharaohs. Back in the days in college, we would just, after a performance, after we would go do an assembly or something, we would just kind of be hanging out. And just, Alex or Gabe or somebody would just...
Okay. Yeah.
And then we're just there in our little cipher, our little circle, and we'll just start flowing. Usually it was about whoever Alex had just broken up with or something. So we would just start freestyling, oh no, Alex, he's all alone. He just got dumped. Like a dog dropping the bone. So he's going to have to go out and try another because the only woman who loves him might be his mother.
Oh, wow.
That was a bird. I'm going to send that to him. I'm sending that one to him. So that was kind of our thing. We were just a bunch of, as I quote from the Prospector news article that came out about us, we were not a bunch of hooligans. We were a bunch of b-boys, breakers, just a bunch of misfits who came together out of, like the Avengers. Actually, I'll start with that. This is where it all started. And I shared this in my keynotes. So if you've heard this, pretend you haven't heard this. Well, Jason has it. Mm-hmm. So I had left Austin in 2001, right after 9/11. 9/11 happened, and that's when I had my kind of inner crisis moment, that part of my life where I was like, well, what the heck? If I can die in this building because an airplane can fly into it, why not go for what I want in life, my dreams, my hopes, my adventure, my big journey?
Wow.
And so I was working at Starbucks at the time, downtown Austin, 6th Street. So we were in the biggest building in Austin at the time. And so that's why I was like, we're in I think it was like America One building or something.
Yeah.
So I was slated to become a manager at Starbucks, start my manager training program to be an assistant manager. Cool. And then 2 weeks after 9/11, I put in my 2 weeks notice.
What?
I was like, you know what? I can't do this because there was something in my heart that was just like, there's adventure out there. There's something different. There's more.
Wow.
And so put in my 2 weeks notice. And within probably the next week, I got this out of the blue phone call from my former dean from my Bible college, Marty Gaines. He was my spiritual guide, guru, the one who lit the flame in me. And he was just saying, hey, we've got an open position for a technician to go travel with this motivational production company that we're with.
Wow.
And I was like, what? And I was like, Marty, I just quit my job and I'm dropping out of school. I'm sorry, school. I was putting ACC on hold because it was finals. And I was like, I'll come back. I'll come back. So I did get my degree eventually. So for those of you listening, got my degree. But for those, there's that saying, you got to be ready for the opportunity of a lifetime within the lifetime of that opportunity. And so I made myself ready. It's like, okay, I'm starting to sever my ties here in Austin. And month and a half later, I was landing in Philadelphia, I think, to start a 6-month tour with this motivational productions company. pretty much they would pay me to travel to schools, about 90 schools within that 6-month period, setting up their screens, these little movie screens about motivational movies. But what I ended up doing at every show, I would b-boy, I would break dance, and then I would talk to the kids just because I was like, this is it. I'm living la vida loca. Wow. And I was just, getting to stay in hotels for free. I was staying in, the first place I stayed after I landed and did a small tour in Philadelphia, I was blocks away from the World Trade Center. I was in New York City. I was in Manhattan. It was so surreal to be down there, and buildings still had like windows kind of blown out in areas. It was so surreal because I was like, I came from Texas. Now I'm here in New York. I remember actually taking little letters like, we believe in you. We're all in this together. And when I was on the subway, just gave it to random New Yorkers. Here you go. Here you go. Just, something to plant seeds. And so I started b-boying at all these shows, and I made really great connections. And after some of the school assemblies, kids would be like, hey, can you come to my church and talk? I'm like, sure. So started making these connections. Fast forward half a year, the company would reach out for feedback to these schools and like, hey, what did you think of our assembly? What did you think of the program, the bully program, the drug prevention? And by the end of the tour, these schools would start saying stuff like, well, your program was good, but that speaker, that breakdancer, that guy, he was amazing. Wow. And they were just like, what are you talking about? The technician? Yeah, whoever y'all sent with it, he was amazing. And that's when my light bulb went off. I was like, wait, if what I'm doing right now, just having fun, is superseding the hypeness and the mission of this company I'm with, why don't I do something like this on my own?
Oh, wow.
And so one of the very clearest ideas, it just dropped into my heart. Call it, the Lord, call it the universe, whatever you want to call it. I'll call it the Lord because, the Lord is my strength, and the journey is there. But I wanted to start this company called Lead, Encourage, and Dance, LEAD, or LEAD for short.
Okay.
And that was kind of my new ambition. So all of a sudden I had this drive, and I was like, I want to do this when I get back home. I don't know how, but I have my mission now. And so one of the very last shows that I did with that company was on this small island out in off the Canadian coast. We had to take a ferry, and I was driving this big, white 15-passenger van with all the equipment. But the president, the owner, the founder of the company flew up there because he was also going to speak at this assembly. And I saw him speak, and I was like, this guy's funny. He was relating to people. But the thing that hit my mind the most was, I can do that too.
Wow.
I can do that too. And so many times we disqualify ourselves because, we see somebody who's doing something and it's like, no, I could never do that. I could never do that. Mm-hmm. But you never know unless you try. And so came back, left the company, came back to Austin and re-enrolled in school. I had gone through a very weird breakup around right before I left. And then I came back, and that kind of picked up again. So it was this weird transitional phase where I was like, I know what I want to do. And so I immediately started calling my dance buddies. Hey guys, you want to do this and this? And, oh, well, I don't know, maybe. And it just wasn't going to happen. But that's where the Lord sends our mommies, our mama to us. So I get back, and immediately my mom is kind of like, so what about college? What about school? It's like, yeah, school's there, but I want to do this break dancing. I want to b-boy. I want to go to schools and dance, and had this whole experience. Okay, what about school? What about school? Finally, she was like, call your uncle. Call Uncle Jaime, because my uncle worked over at the University of Texas in El Paso.
Wow.
So call him up. Okay, what's the process to get into school? This and this. So he sends me all the information, and later that year, here I am driving off to El Paso to go to school, not knowing that this would be the defining moment for everything. And this is where it really gets crazy. It gets exciting. So I get there, and my uncle calls me when I'm driving. He's like, hey, where are you? There's these break dancers. There's dancing in the Union right now. Where are you? I'm like, oh, I'm not there yet. I'm like, man, there's dancers there. Cool. So get to El Paso, get situated, moved into the dorms, and then homecoming, Minor Palooza. It was our big festival, alumni come back, and it's like, a big block party on campus. And so I was there hanging out with some international students when the DJ started playing some hype music. And I was just like, okay, if I'm going to get out here and do something, I need to be willing to do something different. So I just got up from my chair where I was and went to the middle of the street by the DJ, and I just started, freestyling, just started dancing in on the street. And I share this in my shows that when you do different, people take notice.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden these people start coming by and like, oh, what is this guy doing on the floor? And I'm dancing. I'm like, all right, this is cool. And this young lady came out there and she's like, hey, go dance again. It's like, okay, I'm going to show off to this girl now. And so I started dancing. I just started going all out. Well, little did I know that probably 50 yards away, there was these other two guys, Fernie and Gabe, two sick dancers, two B-boys, breakers from El Paso. And they were just leaving. They were like, this event's kind of boring. But then they hear all these people clapping and cheering. And Gabe looks over to the big circle that had formed, and he just sees some feet flying in the air. He was like, dude, I think somebody over there is breaking. I think somebody's getting down. Let's go smoke him. But, let's go battle him.
Yeah.
Sure enough, they come over and, they're like, no, I'm going to battle. And so all of a sudden I see Gabe jump into the circle, and I was like, oh, what the heck? This dude's good. Yeah. And so he starts calling me out, and he is, doing moves that I had never seen, because I knew basic moves, but not these scissor kicks and 90s and all these things that he was doing. So all of a sudden, everybody in the crowd is just like, oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. And so sure enough, I'm like, well, I got to get back out there. I can't lose face in front of this girl. Okay. So I jump back out there, and we just start battling back and forth. And I remember, I think I even grabbed a Frisbee, like a little promotional Frisbee, and I'd like try to do like, some spins on it. And so I was just like, whatever. Yeah. And so we're just going at it, and everybody's like screaming, yelling. And as soon as we were done, my shirt's all charred and black from the asphalt, little cuts from the asphalt.
Yeah.
But we went over to each other, just kind of gave them a prop, like, dude, that was sick. And I just told him out of the blue, because I still had this mission, this goal, this hunger in my heart to do something. And I told him, dude, my name is Patrick. I'm from Austin. I want to use b-boying. I want to use breaking to reach the youth. Mm-hmm. And I just told him, and his eyes got big. Dude, me too. Oh. And so right there was kind of the beginning of what would be called Lead, Encourage, and Dance, the Sun City Floor Rockers. And so Gabe introduced me to Sick Rick, one of the sickest power heads, dancers in that area. And then my neighbor came over from the dorms one day, the apartments we were living in, and Carol, and she was like, oh, I know how to dance a little. So she joined our crew. And then I was in the union just practicing one day, and this guy walks by. He's like, oh, are you going to be here a while? I'm like, yeah. So he goes, I'm going to get my brother, Alex. So he runs off, gets his brother. Alex brings him, the one that I was burning earlier here. So here comes Alex. Oh, dude, can you do windmills? Oh, can you hit these freezes? So we were all of a sudden just coming together. And I told him, like, my vision, my heart is just to use our dancing to reach the youth. I had been working with youth in my church, at-risk youth, quote unquote, which, the brown kids, the Mexican kids in my area, because they tended to gravitate towards the breaking. They tended to gravitate towards the dancing aspect. So I was like, this is the bridge. I can talk to these kids and then use the dancing to inspire them. And then I can actually talk to them. How's school? How are things at home? Mm-hmm. And so now I was meeting other people who had that same vision, that same drive.
Wow.
And fast forward about a year, Crime Stoppers picked us up, YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, the Youth Initiative Project in El Paso. Nice. All of a sudden, all these nonprofits were like, hey, can you come talk to our kids? Come talk to our kids. They're like, yes, this is our heart. Let us do this. The young lady that I was trying to impress in the dance circle, she ended up becoming a big part of our crew as the support, there to hype up. She was a singer. And this plays into later on. And so we were doing all of this. And then I had the idea like, hey, we're all students. We're skipping class at times to make this happen, to do what we love. We need to start charging something. So, hey, school, give us $50, $50. Okay, sure. Like, God, $50. What? What? I mean, and it's so funny to think about because these were the most exciting things. And this is what I'm learning as I look back on all of this. It's not the destination. It's not the ultimate, like, oh my gosh, guys, I'm the Young Entrepreneur of the Year for El Paso now. It's not, I just booked my first ever Fortune 10 client. Those were all great, but it was that journey up. It was a struggle up that hill with the crew, getting these invitations. Red Bull, they saw what we were doing on campus. Hey guys, can y'all come dance at the Amigo Air Show? Hey guys, would y'all like to do some type of event? And we began aligning our moves with our mission. People loved the mission. And that's when those invitations started coming. And that's where through Toastmasters, putting a plug in here for Toastmasters, I was in Toastmasters. I was a competitive speaker. I had great mentors. And I remember at one time during a competition, one of the winners, he was actually, I think, a former runner-up to world champion. He was in our club. And he came up to me and we were just talking. And I told him I want to be like a motivational speaker one day. I want to be, I want to make $5,000. That's my goal. And he looked at me with all seriousness in his eyes. And he told me, Patrick, you are a $5,000 speaker. You just need a $5,000 message. And I was like, oh, okay. Wow. Okay. And so that's when I began to craft, the keynote. For most speakers, we are keynote speakers. And most people think of the celebrities that come in and share their stories. That's celebrity status. These people make $100,000, $100,000 to come talk about their journey. And there's different layers. I was quote unquote a youth speaker. I was working with youth. Fees for that type of genre at the time were like $500 to $1,000, maybe $1,500 for the bigger top dogs, maybe $3,000. And so when these top dogs would start flying into El Paso, and I would see them speaking at the conference that I spoke at for free, I'd email them, hey, I'm a speaker here. Can we meet up? Can I take you to lunch? Started picking their brains. There was another speaker there, a corporate guy who did more trainings, but he was making $200,000 a year. So got in my nicest suit, emailed him, hey, can I come pick your brain? Jeez. And pretty much when I went to talk to these guys, they started unlocking the secrets, not like all these, I don't know, so funny, all these advertisements that I see, like, you want to be a speaker? Come join the Maxwell Leadership Speaking Summit and stuff. The key is it's the marketing. It's all how you market. And that's the first question that Glenn Gallibert, the speaker in El Paso, Making Bank, he just asked me, so what's your marketing like? Well, how are you marketing? I was like, I don't know. People just word of mouth. That's it. Mm-hmm. Oh, so he gave me a copy of his DVD, and I watched him, and I was like, oh my gosh, this dude's making $200,000, but I don't want to be mean, but he's boring.
Yeah,
he's boring. And that was a lot of the speakers. They have great credentials. I went to MIT. I have a Nobel Peace. But when you put them in front of a youth group or a youth school, they're boring. And I was like, we're bringing all this energy with dancers, and we had bought a sound system. So I was like, there is something here that needs to be seen. Marketing can help that. Yeah. So that's when I started doing all the business stuff, building a website, incorporated to a nonprofit 501c3 because we kept getting kicked off campus because the university thought we were liabilities. You get hurt braking, you get hurt, you're going to sue us. In Patrick Bettis fashion, I started going after all the cheerleaders who were on campus and the drill teams that were practicing in the union, and I would call the cops. I'd be like, no, they're dancing on campus. They could get hurt doing flips, and that's a liability. And they're like, what? I'm like, just get down here. So it became a big enough issue that the newspaper got wind of it. And, I told my story, and that's kind of like what put us, got us out there. And I was like, what do we got to do for y'all to quit kicking us off campus? What do we got to do so we're not a liability? Well, you got to become a nonprofit, a club, a 501c3. Okay, how do I do that? Well, you got to get the paperwork in the IRS. So that's why I incorporated, just to get them off our backs. Little did I know in that process, you got so many things you have to do. Get a board of directors, do this, billing, and all that. I was like, what in the world? The business side started kicking in. But also, we now were able to open up bank accounts. We were now able to start charging probably about $500. And so that little by little, started learning about the marketing, sending out postcards, the website. And the first big production or a conference that we ever got was a conference in Idaho, of all places. They have a huge migrant program up there. And there was an event called the Hispanic Youth Symposium. And these were migrant kids, and they would just bring in speakers to motivate and empower. So what we decided was, it was a third-party organization that brought us up, and they were like, how much would you charge? But how much would you charge to bring in your break dancers as well, your dancers? And I was like, oh, I get to bring my crew. Okay. And so I think they got like all 4 or 5 of us for like $4,000 for the week. Like we were doing like this huge conference, about 4 or 5 school assemblies, another exhibition. But we were just so excited. It was just this hunger. It's like, cool, we're doing something. But that was the first indication. The website, the branding, it started working. And for those of you that are listening that I want to be a speaker one day, those are the questions to ask. Who is it that you're trying to speak to? How is your marketing going to try to get you in front of that person? Mm-hmm. And at this time, the youth speaker market wasn't as saturated as it is now. There's entire camps that, pretty much are just spewing out speaker after speaker because it's now a process. Your marketing, your branding, boom, you're ready. Refine your message as you go, type of thing. Wow. And so we went up to that event, and this is another aha moment. The Hispanic Youth Symposium was a lot bigger than I thought. When I keynoted, it was, oh my gosh, applause, the clients. We have never had anything like this because, who combines breaking with professional speaking? Mm-hmm. And so the client took me and she's like, can I speak with you? And I was like, oh, crap, did I do something? Yeah. She was very serious. She took me to the office and she asked me, Patrick, why did you charge so little? Oh, man. Yeah. And she told me, did you know that the last year our keynote speaker was Aaron Grumel from Freedom Riders, the one they made the movie about? Oh, I did not. So why did you charge us so little? And as I thought about that, the honesty was I was conditioned by living in El Paso, by clients who had never spent more than, pizza and maybe $50 for, professional level speaking. And so I was kind of conditioned. And I'll even say there was a bureau agent owner at the time who told me like, yeah, you speakers, maybe 500 locally, 1,000 when you travel. And so the fact that I charged them 1,500, and that was like for a week. That's kind of been the push and pull because my heart was always with youth. And over my career, I've been at this 17 years now, 20 years if you count Lead, Encourage, and Dance. But 17 years, and my presentation has grown. All of a sudden, I was getting invitations from state conferences, student council, FCCLA, and then that grew to nationals. Hey, Patrick, can you come talk to national FCCLAs? Almost 6,000 student leaders from across the country. Oh, hey, student council, national showcase, Angus Beef Jr. nationals. The biggest one I've had that I still work with is the National Guard Family Programs Nationals. And this is from like 2009, and we still work together. But that's been the hard thing is I'm still working with the people that lit my heart on fire because my heart has always been the youth, helping out the youth, speaking to their hearts. But then I started getting these bigger invitations for global leadership summits and then corporate type programs, probably around 2015, 16. So then these other invitations, then my wife and I started doing a joint program called High Impact Programs. And that just kind of blew it up to this other level where we were doing workshops for moving companies and hospice companies. Mm-hmm. And I did a global summit for like NASA's Mars Tracker Youth Global Program. And it just began to grow. And these fees were $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, where I had a lot of people that I was still working with that were used to paying $500 to $1,000. And I was like, how do I bridge this?
Yeah.
And at the time I decided I'm going to start my own little bureau. I'm going to start my own little side hustle where I can refer other speakers who will charge at that level. And then I can take a little cut.
Mm-hmm.
Did that for a while. It got, when you play with money, it gets a little tricky.
Yeah.
And it got a little tricky. Just, well, you said the travel expenses were this much and you're going to take this much commission. And I was like, this is bringing too much drama. I don't want this. So I just kind of scratched that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just started building. And then here's the kicker. With anything, everybody always says, when you do what you love, you'll never work another day in your life. I was like, that was true until 2015, when I burned out. When I think either that year or the year after, I was hitting 6 figures, but I was always traveling. I was getting into arguments with TSA, almost got arrested in Chicago because I was getting into these arguments because I would come back from these shows just like totally drained. And then, TSA is like, do this. And I was like, no, you don't tell me what to do. And it would just escalate. To one point, I was in Chicago surrounded by like 2 or 3 cops, TSA agents.
Wow.
And they were just like, are you okay, sir? Are you okay? I'm like, I don't know. You tell me. Just because I was so exhausted. And when you burn out, but no, my mission, I got to keep going. It's like, no, nothing is more important than keeping your own glass filled. And so I began to scale way back. But even scaling back, I realized something was happening, which I did not understand, but I was starting to burn out. A lot of clients kept bringing me back. I was working with the same client over and over. I don't know if it was a creative burnout or, as I learned last year, maybe it was just ADHD. I finally got diagnosed ADHD, neurodivergent, neurospicy. And I lost the novelty. Because I was no longer cruising up the mountain. I was on the mountaintop now, like putting a ladder, like, well, hard, what else can I do?
Yeah.
And I had kind of zenith and I was training other speakers, but I was still like, I want something else. And so 2015 kind of pulled back. And then for the next probably 4 years, changed up, started doing more workshops, corporate stuff, adult programs. My wife and I were doing art programs, but then same thing, 2019 hits and I'm finishing up a keynote with the American Lung Association, Raise up in West Virginia, sitting in a restaurant. And I'm just like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, this is my 10th year working with this client. They've been so great to me, but I'm needing another break. And I think it was just the novelty was gone. Taking the course. So that's kind of where I am now. And so finally, out of the blue in 2023 or somewhere, a bureau reached out to me. And I've worked with a few bureaus. Shout out to Crown Speakers and Fisher Agency. Y'all have been wonderful. This other bureau reached out, and the lady, Betty Garrett, legend in the field, she and I talked, and she had this MC gig for SHIP, Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. Huge, 10,000 leaders there. But it was MCing, something different. Mm-hmm. And then I told her everything I just told y'all. I told her, like, I'm burning out. I can't do this. And she was the one who told me, you're at a point now, you just need to transition to just corporate. Just corporate, because that will reinvigorate you. That could be something. I was like, I think it would be, because talking to adults, I can talk a lot more adult stuff versus with the kids and the students, middle school, high schoolers. And so that was kind of the new journey. And for a while, she was pitching me till she retired. And then I get this random call from this Fortune 10 company we won't mention. And so that's when I got introduced to Deanna here and several others. And they had seen me at Prospenica, the National MBA Professionals Association. They had seen me there. And they started telling me about their programs, and it was this whole new world that opened up. And they're like, yeah, we work with ERGs. And I just shook my head, pretending I knew what that was. and so I asked my wife, like, ERGs, like, oh, employee resource groups, diversity. I'm like, oh. So that's when I got introduced to this whole world of DEI. And all of a sudden my heart blossomed again. I was like, this is a new avenue. Okay, this is going to be great. I can start going here. And so I rebranded my entire website. I rebranded everything to just hone in on this, the marketing, the branding. And then boom, 2025 hits. And we get somebody in the White House who's like, DEIs are horrible. Let's chop them to bits and fry them up and throw it in the trash. So all of a sudden, my calendar went silent.
Oh God.
That was when it was like, this sucks. Now what? Because no matter how successful you get, I heard a speaker say at one time, if you're like an airplane flying, you could be flying super high or super low. It just depends on your marketing. But the minute you quit having enough fuel, you kind of start coming down. And the marketing was a fuel. And I was like, I just spent my entire marketing budget on the DEI stuff. I had just sent postcards to the Fortune 1000, which was really cool because once again, I was having to rebuild and make these postcards that I haven't done that for a decade.
Yeah.
So it was invigorating.
Yeah.
And what it was a starting over.
Yeah.
It was sometimes when you don't know what to do, when life sucks, you're stuck, go back to the beginning of your journey and start looking there. Like, what was it? And as I've kind of dug into this whole neurodivergent thing, the ADHD, that we lose novelty at times, you can't focus, but when you find something that you like, it helps hone you in. And I started blasting out, making new video content, making all this. So if anything, it reinvigorated me. I was like, okay, this is cool. But the people, the DEI stuff that I was really wanting to plant my flag in, it's just like, oh man, that sucks.
Yeah.
And it's not just for me as a speaker, but it sucks because I know the people in these programs actually get great benefit from it. And just like the Mexican kids I worked with growing up, these kids have grown up and gone to work in companies where they see, why am I the only one of my ethnicity here? They were the one that made it. And so it was a journey. That was a super long response to your question.
No,
and
it was awesome.
No, and I'll say it. I forgot. I want to tie the loose end. So the young lady that initially had like pushed me out there, like, hey, go dance again, and that dance circle against Gabe.
Yeah.
She was part of our crew, very supportive. And this is where I had to start asking myself, like, things happen in life. So that young lady and I, we dated, we were in love. Yeah. And we had a very dramatic, drawn out breakup, over like the course of a year. We finally separated. And given we were college kids, she eventually went off to live in another state. But as I went through a depression for many years, never really dealt with it, just suppressed it. It started coming up, all this heartache and stuff that was just buried there started coming up in different ways. But initially, after that breakup, that's what fueled me to market 13, 14 hours a day. I was like, I'm going to ignore everything, and I'm just going to email, 200 principals. I'm going to go out here and I'm going to, email 100 counselors. Just ignoring the pain to focus on the purpose. That's not good because that stuff comes back.
It does. Yeah.
And eventually I came to the realization, I think, I don't know if it was Oprah or somebody, but they were saying like, a soulmate isn't someone you spend your life with. There's somebody who helps get you on the path to your journey or something along those lines, that it wasn't meant to be an entire thing, because I met a woman a decade later and I was like, oh my gosh, this woman brings a lot of these things that I look for in a partner, someone who was going to be founded in faith, but not head so high up in the clouds they don't question the faith, because look what happened. MAGA. And so people get so holier than thou, it causes things to happen. And so I reconnected with my wife. I reconnected with Rachel, and we connected, we chatted, and I was like, there's something different here, and different is better.
Yeah. And
that was when all of the stuff that I had suppressed started coming out. That string of breakups, and not just this one I was talking about, but just a string of breakups started coming out. And why am I pulling away? Why do I keep everybody at arm's length? I can be the hype man. I can be exciting, which is great for on stage. But then in a relationship, hype only gets you so far.
Yeah.
People want to talk. They want emotional investment. They want to talk deep. And here I am like, well, you want to go salsa dancing? Let's go kayaking. Let's go climb a mountain. Let's go do this. And so just going through these relationships, not knowing that I was self-sabotaging to protect his heart. Because when I rebuilt myself through therapy, through counseling, I just started putting up these walls to build myself back up, but built the walls so big, I was not letting anybody in. And so for those of you listening who've gone through breakups and stuff, it's a journey. It's a journey. And so, and I'll say it's still a journey. I'm really digging into the what they call avoidant attachment, where it's almost like your nervous system shuts down at times when conflict arises, conversations that go deep, when somebody's trying to get next to you, because all of a sudden it's like your body, even though you moved on from it, like the trauma is still plugged into your body. Your body remembers. Your body's like, nope, protection. And the crazy thing is, it's a subconscious thing, which that sucks. So now what?
Yeah.
So it's retraining a muscle, and I'll even say this: in the world of speaking, as a professional speaker, I've been on stages. I've been across the country. A lot of speakers come with the energy, and we look at them like, oh my gosh, you're so amazing. But they're people just like us. The only difference is they marketed, they had a platform, maybe they did a TEDx talk. But, we're at the end of the day, we're all screwed up in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Some people hide it. Some people channel it. In the speaking world, it's almost like a rock band. A lot of infidelity can happen out, traveling, a lot of drugs and stuff. It's something where you need the community. You need a good community to keep you grounded. And I've been very fortunate to have several speakers in my life who, I can talk to, who I can vibe with, and who don't come across as narcissistic. How much did you make? What kind of car do you drive?
Yeah.
What's your biggest show? I mean, because you meet those people and it's just like, get away. I had met one speaker who was really big on, so how much did you make and this? And I was like, dude, my goal is to do it. When I was burned out, I was like, my goal is to do just one show a month and be able to pay all my bills. That to me, that was success. So I can go ride my bike in Austin, go throw myself in the creek, go eat donuts at midnight. Those are the things that I needed. And even right now, my 3-year-old who's banging on the door over here, he's my priority. I quit traveling outside of Texas probably about 2 or 3 years ago, really put the brakes on things so I could just do, events in Texas. And Texas is big enough. We're the 8th biggest country if we ever secede. And so it's been a journey, but it's also pivot, change, grow. And so if anybody's out there wanting to get into professional speaking, feel free to message me. There are a lot of programs out there that will charge you $5,000 and tell you pretty much what I just told you. It's your marketing. But having somebody by your side who can help you with that marketing, I'll charge you $5,000 for that. And we'll help you, because there's speakers that I've helped out who started making more than I did. I was like, oh, well, that was good, but darn it. So it's a fun journey. But the podcast also reinvigorated me. It's reinvigorated me too. So the creative in me is like more, or it's the ADHD, more. One of those two.
That is beautiful. Go ahead, Diane.
It is so beautiful. And I love how you were just so open and shared that. And thank you so much. I did want to go ahead and circle on something that you said. And it just kind of reminded me of something. You talked about the creative process, how you got burnt out. And for people that don't realize, and I think this is what happens with people that are very creative. And I speak from my children, both my boys are writers. And so when they write a piece, and it's, even though it's new to the audience and they're seeing it for the first time, and they've been doing this over and over again, whatever, if it's a play or something, they've been redoing it over, they get burnt out and they want to kind of move on to the next project. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you were going through that. And I think that insight on the audience knowing that even though, like, for example, when I saw you in Prosponica, that was like, wow, this is the first time I saw you. This is amazing. This is great. This is great stuff. But for you, you've already been through that process and you kind of get tired. I don't want to say tired of it. Even though it's your baby, you get numb. Talk about a little bit about that on what makes you, and the reason I asked this question is what makes you continue to pull that motivation inside to continue doing that, aside from getting the bills paid. Because I know many people are finding themselves in that situation at work. What advice would you give others when they find themselves in that rut? And you have found yourself in that.
Yeah. So multiple times and multiple different ways. So good question. So there's a lot to unpack. And there was a book I had read, I believe it was Delivering Happiness, back when Zappos was a big thing. And the founder talks about there's kind of three things, the three P's. There's passion, pleasure, and purpose. And a lot of what we do, whether it's a job, your job is there. It's really not there to give you your passion. If you're working at a front lines in a call center, you're not passionate about that. Purpose, maybe to pay the bills. Pleasure, definitely not that. And so that's kind of the tricky thing. And there's so much in here. That's the tricky thing is I've questioned this. Are we as humans meant to always succeed, be fulfilled, always be at our, what do you call it? Our optimize, our, Maslow's.
Optimal? Okay.
Like optimal, self-actualized. Or as I'd heard on another podcast talking about ADHD kind of stuff, it's we were wired for a life of scarcity, hence, nomadic scarcity, but we live in a world of abundance. And the thing with living in America, the pursuit of happiness, that's the tricky thing because it's the pursuit. It's not the actual achievement. So there's always something else out there. What can I do? What can I do to be happy, fulfillment, self-actualization, grow. And so with the speaking, I had burned out. And so I began to reframe, okay, this was my purpose. I know this is what I'm doing, working with youth. How can I reframe it? How can I make this more pleasurable? So if somebody's working in a call center, how can you make it more pleasurable? Well, finding a community, finding someone to vent with, finding someone that you can go grab happy hour with after work instead of living in isolation. So what I began to do for the pleasure was taking friends with me. Hey, you want to go to Denver? Let's go to Denver. Wow. Hey, I have a lot of friends in El Paso. So I started getting a lot more bookings in El Paso to have friends everywhere I traveled, even family out in Arizona. So the pleasure, and that only lasted so long. and the passion, one thing we always forget about passion, it's not, I need to do this because I love it so much. Passion is suffering. You do it because you have to. And, we've got Easter right around the corner. Even Jesus, he, in the Bible, he was praying in the garden, asking God, his father, can you take this from me? Can you take this from me? But not my will, your will be done. So that's suffering. It's fulfilling the purpose, fulfilling the mission, even though you don't feel like it. And I operated in that life for probably a good 5 or 6 years, where every event I was doing, no matter if it was for 50 kids with the National Guard youth programs, or it was for 5,000 people at a huge conference, I began to have to tell myself, like, the magic may be gone for me, but it's not for them. Mm-hmm. Another quote I heard, and I can't even give credit to it, was passion is for self, purpose is for others. And so just because I don't feel the fire doesn't mean that somebody in the audience isn't going to get something as well. And just because a passion isn't there doesn't mean that I can't still do this, because 17 years I could, there's been times where I get no sleep and I could do a program and still do it great.
Wow.
Another quote I live by was, a professional is a professional because they can do their job even when they don't feel like it. And that's, I think you had mentioned detachment. You detach from that, but you still deliver. Mm-hmm. And there was times where I would be just miserable. But then like, okay, I'm getting on stage here. And once I'm on stage, the energy kicks up. A lot of people who have seen me, I have music, I'm dancing, I'm getting the audience. A lot of the reason I do that is to get myself hyped up. Yeah. I can't be there, feeling the way I was feeling. And it's like, okay, let's talk about motivation. Well, so I get everybody hyped up. That starts getting the endorphins flowing. And I get just as much out of it now as the audience does. Mm-hmm. And so for people that are in a job or in a relationship where they feel that, you've lost the purpose or the passion or the pleasure, it's understanding that, yeah, you can reframe it. But what's helped me a lot is what can you add to it? Counseling, therapy, talking things out, journaling. That was a big one. Journaling, freestyle journaling, set a timer for 10 minutes and you just write whatever comes to your mind for 10 minutes. Or start writing down lists. I hate this job because, and it's not to make you like the job anymore, but at least it gets it out of your head. So you're not ruminating on it, because our minds automatically ruminate and think on the negative, repeat. So reframing and finding just the adventure in those small things, listening to, music right before you go on to a podcast, get hyped up, listening to music on the way to work, something to change it up a little bit. And so, and I'll even say this, because I did work as a 9-to-5er during the pandemic when everything went kind of quiet. I had an invitation from a school to become an entrepreneurship teacher. And so immediately I was like, wow, that's going to be exciting. I get to work with Black and brown kids and I'm going to make little entrepreneurs. And oh, Holy Mary, Mother Burritos. It wasn't like that. It was going into a school where you're teaching hybrid, on a computer, talking to blank screens with kids in the classroom who are so checked out. And I was like, this is not what I thought. Mm-hmm. This is what I thought. And so I had to start eating my own medicine. Well, I have a purpose here. It's not pleasurable. I'm not passionate, but I have a purpose. And so this is what I did. And I encourage anyone who is stuck in this position of like, well, this sucks. Now what? Try to find those sparks, those three things maybe you can have as a win. What are 3 wins you can have this year in your job? Maybe it's meeting a new coworker. Maybe it's getting out of work on time. Maybe it's working out immediately after work to get all that stress out in a healthy way instead of binge watching Severance, which is so amazing, but doing something different. And so that's what I did as a teacher. I just kind of threw everything out the window. You want grades? They don't matter because the school I was at, they didn't even care about. They were not ethical. I couldn't fail kids. It was so amazing. I could not. So I was like, okay, the grades are out. I want 3 wins. I had my first win when one of my students created a business and she made money. And she came and told the class, Mr. Perez, look, she would make rings, jewelry out of wire, like little wire mesh and beads. Mm. So I taught the kids. I was like, I'm going to teach y'all how I run a business. The teaks and all these standardized things they want me to teach, those are good for learning about it. I'm going to show you and then we'll learn. So one of my students early on started a business, had a website, actually got sales and made money. And I was like, what? I actually taught you? And she's like, yeah, it's easy. You told us what to do, how to do it. And all the other kids in the class, well, I want to learn to do a business. I want to do it. And so she shut them up. She's like, no, y'all don't listen. Y'all aren't even here. I did this because I just listened to what he was telling me. Y'all could do it too. Go watch the repeats or something. So that was my first win. I was like, okay, I'm in this to win this. That was my motto. I'm in this to win this. I'm in this to win this. Then I had a second win when this is the kicker. And again, look for these wins in the most unexpected places, but make it intentional that you want to have a win. And the best way to have a win is to start doing a lot of different things. Go to the gym, meet somebody new, talk to people at work, get out of your sphere, because the more things that you can throw against the wall, something might stick. And so I began to go outside the classroom to give opportunities to my students. I began to register for these like statewide pitch competitions, think Shark Tank for high school students. And so, hey, everybody, I need everybody to apply to this competition. This is your grade. Apply. Towards the end of the year, I had a student show up who had skipped like 90%. 90%. I mean, every other teacher already just, what are you even doing here? Well, he showed up in class just to tell me, oh, Mr. Perez, I got this email from Texas A&M about some pitch thing. I'm like, what? So he was like one of 10 finalists from across the state to get selected to pitch his competition because he put it out there. He never thought anything of it. He's like, Mr. Perez said do it. Boom, he did it. But then that fool skipped school for like the next 3 or 4 months. So he just vanished. So he shows up and he's like, yeah, I read the message. I'm like, dude, we got to, you got to compete now, like at the state level. What? Yeah. His idea was kind of like a LinkedIn or a job finder app, but for students. So they could find little off the wall, hey, we're hiring $16 an hour to bag groceries or something marketed for them. So that was his idea. So all of a sudden that was my second win. I was like, yes, okay, good. And so that reinvigorated, and we started putting him in front of cameras. I started giving him, the public speaking breakdown. He represented, shout out to Mario. He didn't win, but still that process, going through that process. And again, throwing things out there, do what you can to give yourself more opportunities than you're given. So many times we wait for opportunities instead of making opportunities. And like Deanna here, she created this podcast. She was la madre de este podcast. She made this. She didn't wait for it. She didn't just wait for this to happen. And so that's what I encourage people to do. You put more out there, get involved in Save Puppies, Toastmasters, volunteer. But then also don't forget, as we are a society, sometimes people will come help you. And that's where I got my third win. We had one, I don't know if they were like a sponsor or somebody with the school district came to me and just told me, hey, Mr. Perez, we're going to give you, I think like $2,500, and we want that to go to your top student who's going to college. And I was like, what? Yeah, it's part of a scholarship we have. So we just need your person for your winner. And I was like, well, this is going to be my third win. It's not something that I did, but now I get to give that to one of my students. And when you have students who have pretty much all skipped all year, they're not there. It's like, how do you find someone? And so I gave it to one of my students who drove me nuts because she always had her earbuds in. But she grasped a lot. She had leadership qualities. She was going to college. So when she walked in one day, I was like, hey, come sit down. And I told her, like, look, you're getting your first semester or so partially covered, through the scholarship. Like, what? And, she wasn't like, oh my gosh. It was just like, say what?
Yeah.
What? Really? Okay. And so that was my third win. And it wasn't something that I did. It was the community. It was society. It was giving it back. And so that's what I encourage everyone to do. When you can do good, do good. When you want more opportunities, you create more opportunities. I mean, even last night, my brother and I went to a Cultural Art Commission meetup just to do something to get him out. He's kind of like Jason, a little more introvert. I'm the one that's like, oh, look, a bottle, be my friend. Oh. So that's me. I make friends with a rock. My brother's a little more reserved, but he's still just as talented, just as powerful with his DJing, making trance EDM music. And so went to this event last night, doing something different. And we've got him now 2 different collaborators for a grant that he's applying for. And so it's all about just doing different. And in my case right now with the speaking, I'm doing an event, I think next week on the 9th for National Guard kiddos. It's a virtual program. But right now, this podcast and the grants are kind of my new energy. This is exciting. And I think that's why this podcast is so fitting in between, because I'm kind of in this in between thing of I want to keep speaking, but I'm good taking a break in this in between. And that's where a lot of people get uncomfortable because we don't like to settle in the in between. In America, you lose a job on Monday, by Friday, you have another job. You're out of one relationship on Tuesday, by Wednesday, you're already on your dating app, trying to get back out there. It's like, no, take time in that in between. because it's in those different experiences, those different things that get us out of our norm that we start to learn and grow and process, and gives us time to really understand this journey that we're on, that it's not so much about where we go, it's who we're with.
Yeah.
And that's why this has been fun. And we'll see what the rest of the year holds. I've got 2 other grants that I'm applying to throw events that bring the community together, and that excites me.
That's amazing.
Mic drop.
Yes.
Drink water.
Wow, Patrick.
Man.
I'm looking up to you
If
right
I have
now.
any clients listening to this, still book me. That would be cool.
I love this. I love this. And Jason, before I do have one final question, but I mean, do you have anything that you'd like to ask before I ask this final question?
I got lots of questions, just letting you know.
Okay, good. Then go ahead.
We can edit.
So, yeah, in the very beginning, Patrick, I mean, I have so many topics, and we can spread all this out through the rest of the podcast. And it's talking about your drive. You know, not everybody has a drive, and you got to find that drive. If you want to find the drive, what is your purpose of finding a drive? You know, can never do that. Sets the tone. You know, when you said, you know, when we say that a lot, I can't do that. I don't know. Well, you just set the tone. You just put in the universe. You don't want to do it. You've closed that door. Like, what is it? Laws of attraction, Murphy's Law, all that. So the powers that be, right? When you put it out there and you say it, people just don't understand how words are so powerful. They don't understand it. They haven't grown yet. They haven't met those people that say, hey, what you say matters. And when you said you could never do that, you shut it down. Right? I love when you do something different, people notice. Oh man, that puts chills throughout my whole body.
Put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah. that people just don't understand. Here's the deal. It's not like people don't understand. It's that you have a closed mind, or you're brought up, due to your background. Like, what do you want to do in life? I don't know. And that's fine. But sooner or later, like, things around you are no longer going to exist to support you. If you're staying in comfort and being somewhere that you just love to be there, things change, things grow away. You talked about soulmate, and like, you know, people don't, in my opinion, what I've learned about soulmate can be your grandmother. Soulmate can be your dog. Do people need to understand? Again, I'm speaking from my passion and suffering, what you just said earlier too, as well, Patrick, but passion, you know, a light, soulmate, it's when you're on that same frequency, you're on that same vibe, you're vibing. That's why you love your grandmother so much. But then when you make her mad, here comes a chocolate, right? But then when in relationship talk, you're looking for that life partner, you're looking for that balance, you're looking for somebody to grow with, and it goes back and forth. I can't wait to talk more about that. And then the relationships, when you lose your job, that's when it counts. Your rock. Is that person becoming a little pebble, or is that person becoming a beautiful mountain? And it's just like, hey, I got you. You know? Let's see. Marketing. That's a big one. I mean, when you have marketing, I'm still learning, and I think it's also like your brand. Like, what is your brand? Is your brand just chilling out playing video games? Okay, well, that's your brand. Like, that's what you do.
You can make millions of dollars on Twitch and all these.
Well, you can, but if you're not exposed to that, then how do you know you can make money off of that? All I'm saying is you're out there playing video games, and that's all you do. Yeah. Now that's who I know. Hey, is that nephew such and such just chilling? Okay, well, that's what they do. You're playing. Hey, what's your game? You're trying to relate to them, but they don't do anything else but play video games, and that's fine. That's okay. But when you're trying to grow and try to do something more for yourself, like, you don't know when it's time to do more for yourself, right? I'm speaking to relatives growing up where I'm good, and you just chill, you're just laying back. It's the finding your purpose, but why? Why are you looking for your purpose? What happened? What, how did it get you there? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the same thing for you, Patrick. You had this mission, you've had this drive, like somebody had this hand on your neck and your back and saying, hey, keep moving. That's wow. Like, how is it some people chosen, some people are, are selected, to do this? Everything has a timeline, right?
And what's weird is sometimes, like during my journey, I was envious of the people that were not like that. That they could just go to work, go home, and just chill. And I was like, wow, imagine what it would be like to be able to switch off and that's it. Because when you're an entrepreneur, you never really switch off, in those first probably 10 years. It's because even when you sit down to veg out, you're thinking, well, I could email this client. I could follow up with this. I could create this. I could do this. So it's almost an envious thing because I think a lot of people, and I'll throw this out there, is that a lot of people have different levels of drive.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they can't all be just as successful. Correct. And I think it's and then that's kind of the thing to dig into. It's weird, but it's kind of like looking, behind the Wizard of Oz. They see like, oh, he's just a man. Like, I'm now wondering, because it's so weird to think about this as I dig into this whole neurodivergent journey. So as I said earlier, I got diagnosed with ADHD, which most of my friends are like, duh, I mean, you think? I was like, yeah, I know, but now I know. But I'm like, wait, has all of this been because of that I needed the dopamine fix? And the dopamine fix came because I'm on this new journey and I got this client and that hit and I did this and this and this. Or was it because I was really passionate? Or was it simply that I had the opportunity to do something great, exciting, and I took it? My first year in college, Sam Donaldson. Anybody remember Sam Donaldson? We're aging ourselves here. He was a reporter, I think, with like NBC or something.
Oh, yeah.
Sam Donaldson. So he graduated from our university. So he was a guest speaker in one of my classes. And the thing he said was this, and I'll paraphrase, I never got into media to make a difference. I never did media to do this or that. I did it because I knew it would be fun.
There you go.
And I was like, man, this guy, like, buildings are named after him. He's like nationally known. He did it for fun. That's what I'm going to do. Yeah. And then, I started, I started getting paid big bucks to have fun, but have fun with a purpose. Yeah. And I mean, it's different. It's different. Yeah. There's people who have that drive, but like I'll even say like Jason and even like my brother, like energy is not like mine. Like, but my brother makes amazing music. You make amazing music. And it's pretty much, you get behind that. Like you said, I had people pushing me. I had great mentors. And that's the thing. I had great mentors all along the way. But like, you're like the mentor to your music. You push it along. But ever since I was in like middle school, Pastor Kenny, he was my guide, my rock, pushing me along. Marty from Bible College and the nonprofit that hired me, pushing me along. Toastmasters, Bob Mahalo, Ira Bat, two totally different people outside of my realm, but we were in that same group and, pushing me along. So it was always having people. You don't get anywhere by yourself. In America, we're so, individualized here that we forget we need people. We need people to push us along.
And just letting you know, like, I like that's in our last episode about me, I didn't have anybody push me, but there was something that was on my neck, my back, just keep going this way. I had no idea. Diane, I have so many questions, but you can come in.
No, I mean, just based on what you were talking about and mentioning, kind of just spurred a whole bunch of different things that we can kind of like talk about. The fact that I think people are wired differently, and it could be the cosmic universe, God, Allah, whatever you want to call it, spirit, Mother Earth. I mean, we have so many people, different names and titles to call this higher entity power. that I think, this is personally, now I'm going to just kind of put in my belief system. I think everyone is wired differently because we're all meant to do different things, here, and and some of us cannot be the Patricks, the Jasons, the Dianas. We cannot be these individuals that make an impact or have that artistic talent in certain ways. They just don't. Mm-hmm. And so that drive that we talk about, like, how do we get here, that creative drive, it doesn't resonate with many others, but they have something different to offer. Some people a little bit more analytical. Some people a little bit that gear towards the sciences, and they're just really focused on that area. And so I think essentially that push, that drive, the people that just conform because that's where they need to be and they're fine and okay with it because they've reached that point. I think, and this is where, if you notice, trauma that happens among people is really kind of like, I think personally, is a driving force out there for people.
Oh, big time. Yeah.
It is. And so there are people that are very, I don't know if I want to call it fortunate, but they don't really experience those traumatic events that propel and push them
So what is
to
that
make
drive?
a change, to make a difference, because it's something that it's an inner struggle, a fight inside. Because when you really look at people that are motivated and that are driven, it's because they're questioning themselves. They're really kind of trying to fit in and trying to be the normal because they feel so out of place and displaced.
That is so good. Yeah. So good.
But they're really the ones that are paving the way. They're the disruptors, and everyone envies or kind of say, oh, I wish I could be like them. But they wouldn't be that way unless the trauma existed, unless something in their life happened to trigger and have that drive. So for some people, they don't have that and they can't understand that. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're blessed in one area. You become very empathetic, or you become, because the trauma caused you or what you experience, and you're out there to help people because you don't want others to experience what you've experienced. You want to make that change.
Wow. That's exactly it. That and I'll, like that right there. It's the pain. So the reason I worked with the young Mexican kids was I knew what it was like to be bullied. I knew what it was like to always, kind of feel less than. And so, yeah, and you're right on. And when you think about like movie actors who ultimately sadly end their lives because they had trauma, they had something that went untreated. There's some speakers that I've met where, they came from big poverty. So of course they want to show off how much money they have, how much bling they have. That's huge. That is the trauma created the journey. Does
that also fit in where passion is suffering that you had mentioned, Patrick? Is that a different interpretation?
That is a good one.
You know what I'm saying?
I know there's a common phrase, from pain comes purpose. And I think experiencing our pain directs us into the direction of our purpose.
Oh, wow.
So I think that is definitely something to look at. You see a lot of the celebrities we celebrate, let's see what was their journey. Dave Ramsey's easy one is, he went bankrupt after having all these rentals or something. Mm-hmm. So that's when he started his, financial ministry, for himself and rebuilding. So yeah, there's always something that triggers something to happen, from the pain to the path. That'll be the next book. Boom.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think everything you're saying is true. So true.
And I think what one of the hardest aspects of when we see all these people that are very creative, and then I see firsthand, seeing it through my children and seeing it through people that I know that are very creative, is I think this is where community comes in. community and the people that you love. And we're talking about a difference between like having fans versus having your community that see you for who you really are.
Connection.
You know, when you have people that want to be around you because of your status, your celebrity, or because of, you know, they see you excelling and propelling and moving in a direction that they wish they can go, they're there for the wrong reasons. They don't really see you for who you are. But when you really have that person, those people that surround you that see who you are, that can make a difference between a person taking their life, you know, or from moving on to substance abuse or finding other destructive behaviors because they want to quiet that voice inside their head.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important. And the reason I touch this is because we're going to have listeners that are going through that, that they're going to have voices inside their head that are just speaking some really bad things in their head and question their existence and questioning why they're here and their purpose. And to know that we all go through that at one point or another, but you need to hold on to some form of community or someone there and know that you are seen and you're being heard and that you are important.
I think due to social media, they are trying to create a community for themselves, but there's no connection there unless they talk about engaging, right? That's how you get paid and through social media. And if you engage, and here comes more the algorithm and stuff. But I think that's what everybody's doing on social media is trying to create a community. You know, it's just how do you do it? Where's the pros and cons in that? But if you didn't have social media,
it's an artificial community. It's an artificial community.
Oh, an artificial community. Yeah.
It's an artificial community because people are looking for that temporary dopamine effect, that fix of getting that like. You know, how many times we pick up our cell phones and we're kind of looking, did they like my comment? Did they like my comment? You know, did they, you know, and we find ourselves, why isn't people looking at my likes or anything? And I remember I was having a conversation with my son and I was like telling him, it's really strange how certain posts are driven, they get more likes and others that don't, but I know that people are seeing it because they happen to comment and say, hey, Diana, I really love that post. It was so deep, but they didn't like it. And I'm thinking, why didn't you like it? So my son said, he asked me a question and he said to me, I want to ask you a question, Mom. When you're doing your post, who's your audience? Who is your audience? Who are you writing for? And then I said to him, I'm writing for myself. Currently my posts that I'm creating, I'm writing for myself. I'm really not, and whoever it may resonate to, but really it's for myself. It's my therapy. And then he says, so Mom, then you shouldn't care how many likes you get or not.
That's it. That's it.
Boom. And I was like, mic drop, boom. Like, okay.
Done.
Awareness is key.
That's it.
So, and I think that is what the takeaway here from our audience is like, if you are trying to find that artificial community, it's not fulfilling. It is just a temporary thing. You have to really realize that social media, you can use it as an instrument of your therapy, but be prepared. People are going to really see into your soul. Are you ready for that? Are you ready for people to see a different perspective of you and say, man, wow, I never knew that about you. And are you prepared for whatever it is? But know that there are others that are just going through it like you. But yeah, so I just had to get on my soapbox on this. Sorry that I'm on
this is so good.
That was good, Diana.
We had the ultimate test during the pandemic. Everybody was on social media and you know, the isolation, and research shows now, you know, the mental health plummeted. You know, a lot of people are still dealing with mental health because the trauma's still there. We moved on 5 years now, but the trauma's still there.
Yeah.
So, I think mental health is that's going to be a problem for many years moving forward because of all the generations that have gone through it. And, you know, most will share. Some don't want to share because they don't want to pass that on to their, you know, because, you know, it's almost like, remember how words are powerful? And I think, yeah, I'm kind of going off on another road here, but how the powers that be want to erase history. But at the same time, if you go back to history, you get to learn from that, and then like, don't repeat it. But remember what I also said: you go back to thinking about of the past. Now you're sitting in negativity, so you have to have this balance.
Yeah.
Right?
I never thought of it
Business
like that. Yeah.
versus health, well-being.
Well, but let me ask you this, Jason. Don't you think a little bit of negativity in our lives can contribute to positive behavior or some positiveness? Don't we need some form of negativity to take action so that we can become better individuals or better people? If and make that realization, that connection, because that can lead to something positive. So something negative doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It just means of how we take that information or how we read it or how we interpret it. And what do we do from there? What next? What's next? What happens? That can be something positive, or it can be something negative that we do with it.
That's the part that I think a lot of people are having problems with, is to differentiate that negativity and use that as fuel. But once that negativity is, now to Patrick's point, and let me know if I'm wrong or right on this, Patrick, but once that runs out, so you got to find your new path, you got to find your way. But you can definitely, I think the world moves off of like, that what we're talking about right now. Like a prime example, men. If they can't get the woman that they want and they're trying to please that woman, they're trying to do everything they can, money, this and this and that, and it doesn't work. It just shows in studies where all of a sudden that person becomes the president. That person is this because that drive. It all had to do with that drive, woman, right? So again, it's the connection between that negativity, and don't sit in it, don't sit and suffer, but use it as fuel to keep moving, use it as drive. But once you have done that, to what y'all said today, once you're on that passion, you're speaking, and in your example, Patrick, but for others, they're speaking, trying to find themselves and not realizing they're actually paving a road, but they're actually fighting their negativity because they're on a drive, right? But once it runs out, you get burned out, and it's like, well, okay, I think I'm good now. But you still have a mission. You still have a purpose, or is that the continuing purpose? Are you still going to talk in this example? Are you going to continue, motivating people, moving people? There's just different levels. You got to find talking about creativity.
Creativity. This is how you're interpreting the negativity, how you're releasing it back, and finding the new sources.
I am not perfect in any way. I'm still trying to figure this out, which is the reason for my questions, you guys.
This is good.
This is some good stuff. And I think we should leave some stuff for the next following episodes to come. So with that, in Life and In Between, I want to thank Patrick Perez for being so candid, so honest, so revealing, and sharing all his knowledge and experience, and for actually being on this sucks. And now what?
I don't know why I laugh every time I say that, because it does suck. I'm happy to be here. God damn.
So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Please don't forget to subscribe. Also, I'm going to let you other guys lead it because my brain is mush right now.
So next podcast, we will be hearing from the creator of this podcast, the one, the only, Diana Gonzalez Lebu. So we'll be digging into her journey, her story, and I think even unpacking why she started this podcast. So we're gonna go deep, y'all. So you don't want to miss. And with that, we'll throw some cool music on, and we'll peace out of here. So thank you all for joining in. Don't forget to subscribe, recycle, tip your waiter. Peace.
Thank you, everybody.
Peace.
Yay!